To Binet Tips. Today we'll be discussing some of the PYQs and quick revision from the chapter life processes. So let's get started. So the first question is differentiate between autotrophs and heterotrophs and give examples of each. So as you all know that autotrophic nutrition is basically synthesized from simple inorganic raw materials such as water and carbon dioxide. Okay, so basically this is done by producers or green plants. All green plants are called as autotrophs. Now, heterotrophic nutrition is the food that is directly or indirectly obtained from autotrophs. So, this food is broken down with the help of certain enzymes, okay, because it is broken down into simpler materials, okay. Now, in autotrophic nutrition, chlorophyll is required because you all know that green plants, they obviously need to conduct photosynthesis, and the pigment that is responsible for this is chlorophyll. Whereas in heterotrophic nutrition, chlorophyll is not present. Okay, it is not required because we are dependent on the producers for the food. Alright. Now in autotrophic nutrition, food is generally prepared during daytime, and heterotrophic nutrition, food can be obtained at all the times. Okay. Autotrophic nutrition, all green plants and some bacteria have this type of nutrition. Now you all have heard about blue-green algae. So blue-green algae are also examples of autotrophs, and heterotroph, all animals and fungi, since they lack chlorophyll, they have this type of nutrition. Okay, let's move forward. Now, what is common for cuscuta, ticks and leeches? Now you have studied about the different types of heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are of three types. One is saprophytes, which feed on the dead and the decayed. Then you have parasites, okay, and then you have studied about holozoic mode of nutrition, that is amoeba. Okay, so here cuscuta, ticks and leeches are examples of parasites, that is organisms which feed on other organism. They are dependent on other organism. Okay, so cuscuta, ticks and leech they all follow parasitic mode of nutrition. They harm their host while taking the nutrition from them. Okay, now what are the two stages in photosynthesis? One is light reaction and the other one is dark reaction. Light reaction, light energy breaks up water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, called photolysis of water, because this breaking of or splitting of the water molecules take place in the presence of light. Okay, so you have studied that in a structure of chloroplast, you have studied that there are small coins like structures, and this single coin like structure is called as a grana or a granum, right? So this stacked together is called as a thylakoid. So this is the region where the light reaction, that is the presence of sunlight and breaking of the splitting of the water molecules, take place. Whereas inside the chloroplast there is a jelly like matrix called as the stroma. This part is called as the stroma, and this is the part where the dark reaction takes place, that is fixation and conversion of carbon dioxide into simple carbohydrates, that is glucose. Okay, next. Now, how is the opening and closing of stomata regulated? Now you have studied the structure of the stomata, that stomata are small tiny pores which are present on the surface of the leaf. So you have studied the structure of the stomata, where you have the two God cells, kidney shaped cells, called as the God cells. We call them as the God cells, and there is a small pore called as the stomatal opening or the stomatal pore. Okay, now this stomatal pore or closing and opening of this stomata is regulated by these two guard cells. When the guard cells swell, that is when water enters into the guard cells, they tend to swell up just like any other cell due to the entry of water, and they become turgid. Okay, they become turgid, and this way stomata is open. Whereas the guard cells, they shrink whenever water diffuses out. Okay, when the water diffuses out, the cells shrink and they become flaccid and the stomata gets closed. All right. Now, autotrophs synthesize food for the living world. Justify the statement in one sentence, only interconnecting autotrophs and heterotrophs. Now you know that autotrophs, also called as the producers, are autotrophs. The food producers are autotrophs, and all the other organisms are dependent on autotrophs for food, directly or indirectly, right? So this way, I think autotrophs synthesize food for the whole living world, and all the other organisms are dependent on them. Okay, moving to the next question. Explain with the help of neat and well labeled diagram the different steps involved in the nutrition of amoeba. So as you all know that amoeba undergoes a process, or it takes in the food with the help of a nutrition called as the holozoic mode of nutrition. Okay, the process of obtaining food by amoeba is called as phagocytosis. Now how does this happen? Amoeba ingests food by using its finger like projections called as pseudopodia. So whenever amoeba senses the food, it engulfs, or it starts spreading its finger like projections called as the pseudopodia. Okay, so you can see here, this is the pseudopodia. All right. Okay, now what is the next step? What happens next? Next is that the food is engulfed with a little surrounding water to form a food vacuole. Once the food is engulfed by the pseudopodia, a food vacuole is formed by amoeba, and then the food is digested in the food vacuole by certain digestive enzymes, and this process is digestion. So first step is ingestion, and the second step is digestion. Now after digesting with the help of digestive enzymes, the food is absorbed directly into the cytoplasm of amoeba by diffusion. Now this food, whatever is absorbed, is then converted to energy for the growth of amoeba. So this process is called as absorption. So first is ingestion, second is digestion, and third is absorption. Once it is absorbed, it has to be transported towards the all the parts, and when once it is assimilated, or once it is the nutrition from the food is completely taken, it becomes undigested food, and the undigested food, whatever is left, is then thrown out of the cell with the help of a process called as egestion. So the 5 steps of holozoic nutrition are: one is ingestion, next is digestion, then comes absorption, then comes assimilation, and then comes egestion. Okay, so this is the same process that human beings also follow. So holozoic mode of nutrition, either you can write about amoeba or about the human beings. Okay, but specifically if they are asking you about amoeba, then these are the processes along with this diagram. This question can be asked for 1 mark, 2 mark, 3 mark. So 3 mark means 2 mark for explanation and 1 mark for the diagram. Alright. Now moving to the next question. What is peristaltic movement? Now what is peristaltic movement? So when the food enters into the esophagus, it has to slowly move down towards the stomach, and the food is pushed with the help of certain rhythmic contractions, right? Rhythmic contractions take place, and this contraction and relaxation of the muscles of the gut to move the partially digested food towards throughout the alimentary canal is called as peristaltic movement. So you can see in this diagram I have mentioned here how the food is moving with the help of contraction and relaxation of the muscles. All right. Okay. So the next question is, stomata remain closed in desert plants during daytime. How do they do photosynthesis? So as you all know that desert plants are also known as xerophytes, and in order to prevent transpiration, in order to preserve the water they have, they do not open the stomata during the daytime. Then how does photosynthesis take place? So that is, stomata opens at night and they take in the carbon dioxide in desert plants. Okay, stomata remains closed during daytime to prevent loss of water by transpiration. They store the carbon dioxide in their cells until it is daytime, and then they carry out photosynthesis during the daytime using the stored carbon dioxide. Stomata is open only at night in the desert plants. All right, so this is the question that is often asked for 2 marks. All right, moving down to the next question. What is the role of saliva in digestion of food? So what is the role of saliva? So saliva, as you all know, contains the enzyme salivary amylase. Okay, salivary amylase is also known as ptyalin. It is also known as ptyalin, and this is an enzyme that helps in the breakdown of starch into simple sugar like maltose. Okay, starch is a complex sugar. With the help of salivary amylase, it is broken down into simple sugar like maltose, which is easily digestible. Now the saliva also has one more function, that it helps in cleaning the mouth cavity and moistens the food, that helps in chewing and breaking down the big pieces of food into smaller ones. This is called as when the food mixes with saliva and it softens, it becomes bolus. We call it as bolus, and this bolus is formed by chewing, breaking down of food, and with the help of the teeth and the tongue and the saliva, and this whole process of breaking down is called as mastication. We call it as mastication. So what is mastication? Mastication means it is the breaking down, grinding, chewing of the food with the help of teeth, saliva and the tongue, and this process is called as mastication. Okay, moving forward. Complete the flow chart as given below and as per the given instructions. So they have given you a flow chart. This question is often asked for 2 marks or 3 marks. Okay, now gastric glands present in the secretion, gastric glands present in the wall of the stomach and the secretions. Okay, now you have to write what are the gastric secretions and what are their functions. So gastric glands secrete, number 1, HCl or the hydrochloric acid. Then they secrete pepsin, an enzyme, and then they also secrete mucus. Now, what is the function of HCl or hydrochloric acid? Hydrochloric acid helps in the digestion of the food, and also it activates the enzyme pepsin. Okay, pepsin has to be activated so that it helps to break down protein. So what is the function of pepsin? Pepsin breaks down the proteins. Proteins are broken down. Okay, 2 peptones or amino acids, simple amino acids. Now what is the function of mucus? Mucus function is to protect the walls of stomach from HCl. Why? because HCl is an acid and it can corrode the walls of the stomach. So mucous membrane is present throughout our alimentary canal so that it is not corroded by the action of HCl. Diffusion is insufficient to meet the oxygen requirements of multicellular organisms like human. State reason. Due to higher metabolic rate and the volume of human body is so large that oxygen cannot diffuse into all cells of the body quickly, as oxygen will have to travel large distances to reach each and every cell. Okay, so as you all know that humans are multicellular and the whole body system is so complex, and diffusion is a very slow process. So in order to make the substances travel from one place to another place, it will take a very longer time, and we have a very higher energy requirement, and this diffusion process is insufficient to meet the energy or the oxygen demand of the body. All right, so diffusion won't be able to meet the requirements of the multicellular organisms like human. So I hope this question is understandable for you. All right, now, why is small intestine in herbivores much longer than that in carnivores? Now, you might have seen that herbivores generally they feed only on green plants, okay, and carnivores feed on meat. Now, the organisms which feed on green plants, they have the green plants have an enzyme called as the green plants, the cell wall is made up of cellulose, right? This cellulose is it's a complex carbohydrate, and in order to break it down you need special enzyme called as cellulase, which is missing in the herbivores. Now, in order to break this down, there are certain symbiotic bacteria in the gut of the herbivores. And in order to break this, it takes a very longer time for the herbivores, and that is why they have a longer small intestine. When compared to carnivores, carnivores feed on meat. Animal cell does not have a cell wall and it does not have cellulose. So, that is why they have a shorter intestine for digestion of food eaten by them. Okay, this question is also asked for 2 marks as give reasons based questions. Okay, so herbivores require cellulase enzyme which is missing in them to digest cellulose, and that is why they have a longer small intestine compared to the carnivores. Okay. Now, what will happen if mucus is not secreted by the gastric glands? Like I told you that gastric glands or the glands which are present in the stomach, they secrete HCl, then pepsin and mucus. Now, this HCl is an acid which basically helps in the activation of the enzyme pepsin to convert or break the proteins into peptones. This mucus actually helps in the protection of the walls of the stomach from the HCl corroding the walls of the inner lining of the stomach. This can lead to acidity and ulcers. So, in order to protect the walls of the stomach, mucus is secreted. Okay. Mention the raw materials required for photosynthesis. So, raw materials, as you all know, you need carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and chlorophyll or chloroplast. Okay. So, these are the raw materials that are required to conduct photosynthesis for green plants. Name the glands present in the walls of the stomach that release secretions for digestion of food. Write the 3 components of secretions that are released by these glands. So, name the glands which are present in the stomach. They are gastric glands. Gastric glands are present in the stomach, and write the 3 components of secretion that are released. One is hydrochloric acid, mucus, and two protein digesting enzymes, renin and pepsin. Renin is basically secreted only in infants, okay, and not in adults. All right. Now, state the role played by the following in the process of digestion. Now, enzyme trypsin, enzyme lipase. So, enzyme trypsin is, both the enzymes are secreted by pancreas. I hope you all know this. Now, enzyme trypsin helps in the breakdown of proteins into peptones and peptones into peptides and amino acids. But this trypsin is actually produced in an inactive form called as trypsinogen. Okay. Next, enzyme lipase is secreted by pancreas and small intestine. It converts fats into fatty acids and glycerol. All right. List the two functions of finger-like projections present in the small intestine. So as you all know that inside the small intestine, there are small finger-like microscopic projections or brush-like structures called as the villi. There are two functions of villi. One is to increase the absorptive surface area of the inner lining of the small intestine, and second, more the small surface area is increased, it helps in rapid absorption of digested food. So you can see the structure of villi here. Okay, so I've given the structure of villi, and you can see that it is provided with number of capillaries so that it increases the surface area for absorption of food. Okay, next question. Name two waste products which are stored in old xylem in plants, and name the process by which plants get rid of excess water. Name the pores through which the process takes place. The two waste products are resins and gums. Okay, resins and gums are the two waste which are stored in the old xylem in plants, and the process by which plants get rid of excess water is through transpiration, and the pores which through which the process takes place is stomatal pore. All right. Name three different glands associated with the digestive system in humans. Also name their secretions. So I have given four here. You can write any three. Actually, I have given four. So here also one I have given. So as you all know that salivary glands secrete the saliva, which has ptyalin or the salivary amylase, and the function is to convert to starch to maltose. Gastric glands secrete pepsin, renin, and hydrochloric acid. Pepsin helps in the conversion of proteins to peptones, and renin is only released in infants. It helps to it basically is a milk protein or a casinogen, and it helps in the curdling of the milk. Okay. Pancreas secrete pancreatic amylase, which again converts starch to maltose. Trypsin converts proteins and peptones to peptides and amino acids. And pancreatic lipase, it converts the emulsified fats to the fatty acids and glycerol. Okay. So then the next one is intestinal glands. They have maltase. They secrete maltase, which converts maltose to glucose and glucose. Then lactase, which converts lactose to glucose and galactose. Sucrose to glucose and fructose. And lipase, fats, fatty acids and glycerol. Alright, so I've given four glands. You can write whichever you want, but it's better you mention the ones which is given in your NCERT, that is salivary, gastric and pancreas. Okay, the next one is, what is translocation? Why is it essential for plants? Now, translocation is the process of movement of food from the area where it is produced, that is from the leaves to the other parts of the plant with the help of phloem is called as translocation. It is necessary because every part of the plant requires energy. It needs food for energy, and that is why this process is very important to maintain the life. Alright, so translocation is the process of transportation of food that takes place with the help of phloem from the region where it is produced, that is from leaves, to different parts of the plant. What are the substances translocated by the phloem where are the substances translocated by the phloem delivered? The movement of food in phloem is transported upwards and downwards. So the food moves in a bidirectional manner. So I hope you know this. Whereas in xylem, water moves only in one direction, whereas the food moves in both the direction. Okay, so what happens is that it is delivered to different parts of the body from the leaves. Okay, leaves is the site where the food is produced, and then it is taken up from there, moved to different directions with the help of water and xylem, and then it is transferred to different parts of the body where they need energy to grow. All right. Okay. Draw a diagram of the alimentary canal and label the following parts. Largest gland, gland that secretes digestive enzymes and hormones, part where HCl is produced, and part where digested food is absorbed. So you can see that I've given a picture of the digestive system or the human alimentary canal, where you have to label the largest gland. So the largest gland is the liver. Alright, liver is the largest gland in the human body. Gland that secretes digestive enzymes and hormones. So which is the site that secretes both digestive enzymes and hormones? That is the pancreas. Alright, so pancreas secretes both the hormones and the digestive enzymes. Part where HCl is produced. So HCl is produced in the stomach. So C will be stomach. And the fourth one will be part where digested food is absorbed. Food is absorbed in the small intestine, right, with the help of villi. So the fourth one will be small intestine. Alright, I hope this question is clear. Moving on to the next. Okay, this question can be asked for 5 marks or 3 marks. Okay, so bile juice does not contain any enzyme, but bile salts are important for digestion and absorption of fat. State the reason. Now, as you all know, bile is secreted by liver and it is alkaline and contains salt, which help to emulsify or break down the fats present in the food. Thus, bile performs two functions. One, it makes the food that comes from the stomach is acidic, and it makes food alkaline so that pancreatic enzymes can act on it. All right, and then bile salts break the fat present in the food into small globules so that it will be easy for the enzymes to act and digest them. So this also can be asked as a 2-mark question. One, it makes the food from acidic to alkaline so that pancreatic enzymes can act on it. And second one, it helps in the breakdown of fat to small globules so that the digestion is very easy. Okay. Moving on to the next question. What are the components of transport system in highly organized plants? Now you all know that the components, the two main complex tissues which are present are xylem and phloem, and you have to write that xylem components are vessels and tracheids, which helps in the conduction of water, and phloem as sieve tubes and companion cells. companion cells that help in the translocation of food from the region of production to the region where it is necessary. All right. So what are the two components? Xylem and phloem. Okay. Now, how are the lungs designed in human beings to maximize the area of exchange of gases? Now, as you all know that you can see the structure which is given here. In the lungs, the trachea differentiates into two bronchi, and then the bronchi differentiates into bronchioles. Then this bronchioles terminate into balloon-like structures called as the alveoli. And this alveoli contain many blood capillaries surrounded so that it increases the surface area for the exchange of gases. Okay. Why the walls of trachea are supported by cartilaginous rings? Now, as you all know, this trachea is basically a muscular organ. Okay, it's just like esophagus. It is a muscular organ and it is supported by C-shaped cartilaginous rings so that it prevents the collapsing even when there is not much air in it. So, there is a chance that this muscular organ can get collapsed, can get stuck with each other, and this is avoided with the help of the C-shaped ring. Okay. Now, what are the components of the transport system in human beings? What are the functions of these components? Just now we studied the components of the transport system in plants, and now we are studying about the transport system in human beings. There are the components of the human system are the heart, which receives and pumps the blood. You have the arteries. These are the vessels that carry the oxygenated blood from the heart to different parts of the body. Then you have the veins that carry deoxygenated blood from different parts of the body to the heart. And then you have the capillaries where the exchange of various materials and gases takes place between the blood and the tissue. And you can also write about the blood. Okay, the blood has RBCs, WBCs. Okay, WBCs and platelets. You can write about the RBCs carry a pigment called as hemoglobin. Okay, these are the components of the transport system in human beings, and these are the functions. All right, moving forward. What advantage over an aquatic organism does a terrestrial organism have with regard to obtaining oxygen for respiration? The rate of breathing is slower in terrestrial organisms as compared to aquatic organisms. So you might have seen a fish. Whenever you see an aquarium, you might have seen a fish keeps on opening and closing its mouth. Okay, the reason is that it has to inhale the oxygen which is dissolved in water. Okay, the amount of water which is present in water is comparatively less than that which is present in atmospheric air. The amount of oxygen which is present in the water is in dissolved form, and it is less than the atmospheric air. So that is why the breathing rate in aquatic organisms is much faster than the terrestrial organism. Okay. After a vigorous exercise, you may experience cramps in your leg muscles. Why does this happen? So you have studied two types of respiration. One is aerobic and one is anaerobic respiration. So what happens when you continuously do any physical activity? You have a lack, or there is a cutoff of supply of oxygen. This basically can lead to the production of lactic acid in the muscle cells, and this is the reason that due to the accumulation of lactic acid in the muscle cells, you get muscular cramps in the leg muscles. All right, because anaerobic respiration is taking place, that is when the absence of oxygen is there, then anaerobic respiration takes place and lactic acid is produced in the muscle cells. So I hope these questions were useful. Subscribe to Binet Tips and stay tuned for another video where I have some more questions based on life processes, and we'll continue it in the next class. Thanks for watching Binet Tips.